where I came across this Nobel Prize, and I read it. What I read, this is your body's own stem cells, which means it's 100% take in your body. Your body's naturally making them. With the flip of a switch, you have the ability to go from 95% oxygen down to 8% oxygen. So this is assimilating being about 23,000 feet above sea level. So it's like immediately when you flip this switch, you're at the altitude of Mount Everest. Oxygen and just release, release, release. So now essentially you're doing legal blood doping. Your cells, what this is doing now is it's actually accelerating the cellular healing process. This is huge. So, imagine with, say, fighting, for example, MMA, you've got 30 seconds, to recover, and you're taking how that event went down and what happened, because I had actually died. So 10x Health, which...
Welcome to another episode of On Path, where we explore the mindset, the hardships, the strategies of other creators, entrepreneurs, and change makers, so you can apply the lessons to build a healthier, wealthier, and more fulfilling life for yourself. In today's episode, our guest is Dorian, who has 2 decades of experience with personal training, MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and biohacking. He has worked with NFL athletes, fighters, veterans, using innovative methods like high-altitude, intermittent, hypoxic recovery training. This is what we are going to unpack today. I personally tested his method while I was struggling with a rib injury for weeks, and only after 1 session, the pain was gone in like 2 or 3 days. Coincidence? I don't know. You tell me. In this episode, we explore the science behind how to boost EPO naturally, how to heal the body through different biohacking modalities while increasing telomere length and stem cell generation, all contributing to our health and longevity. Dorian also explains why 10x Health Superhuman Protocol is falling short while his methods are going beyond. But before we jump into the episode, please do a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. That's what allows us to bring on other interesting guests in the future as well, so we can continue the work that we are doing here. And without further ado, let's jump into the episode.
Today we have Dorian here, and we are going to be talking about high altitude intermittent hypoxic recovery training, which sounds super fancy. Before we jump right into what it is, who should actually pay attention to this, and who uses this, and why do they use this?
Epic. Okay, great. Well, you got it right. High altitude, intermittent, hypoxic recovery training. Who uses this particular modality is a wide range of people, even though it is something that still many people don't know about. Who should be paying attention and who uses it. Wide range from athletes, professional athletes, veterans, elderly people, chronic intake patients, and ones who are just interested in their health, whether it be biohacking. I like to use the terminology biooptimization for biohacking, and just anybody who's looking to not only improve their health, but who are really looking for preventative maintenance for their health as well.
Oh. What preventative maintenance it offers? Like, I know a little bit about the high altitude training, but in the old fashioned way of like up in the mountains and days and stuff, which I have some questions about that. We're gonna go later in this, but yeah, who's going like how is helped with this maintenance?
For sure. So preventative maintenance, we could take a look at the blood, just from the standpoint of cleansing the blood. So with this particular modality, with the high altitude intermittent hypoxic recovery training, what is happening with this, one of the byproducts is just the superoxygenation of the cells. So when you're superoxygenating the cells, when you're boosting EPO, which is erythropoietin, and that's something that I'm sure we'll get into within the conversation. This is the hormone that matures the red blood cells in the bone marrow. So what that does is it is causing the new red blood cells
to produce more.
Correct.
So it forces to produce more red blood cells, yes. Which normally that happens only when you get injured or when your body has a reason to reproduce them.
Yeah, there's many different there's a few different ways and reasons why your body would be, boosting new red blood cells. But when you're able to tap into actually having the body, release these red blood cells, and then you're super oxygenating these red blood cells, what this is doing now is it's actually accelerating the cellular healing process. So it's actually getting into the areas of the body, scar tissue, injury sites, neurologically dampened areas as well. It's getting to all of these areas, super oxygenating those areas and causing an accelerated cellular healing process. Respiratory as well. As you know, we all had experienced some sort of a respiratory event over the past few years that had caused the world essentially to be wearing masks and putting themselves into states of chronic hypoxia. And this is very damaging to the cells. So everybody should be looking at ways of really strengthening their respiratory system and, essentially reversing what had happened, the negative effects of wearing these masks for
I guess you are against
years.
the masks as well, right?
I am, yeah.
Hope we're not gonna get canceled for that, but
Yeah.
oh,
we
fuck
still
those
don't know what
masks,
the
man.
consequences are.
Yeah, I
It's still
mean,
very new.
I was trying to avoid those masks during COVID. And
Yeah,
hopefully that's okay to say it live. But yeah,
We're
I
gonna
was trying to
beep it
avoid
out,
them
don't
as
worry.
much as possible, man. Like I could see all those, how problematic that approach was to keep gagging yourself and
Yes.
breathing and keep breathing through this material all the time.
not only the material that was being, what we were breathing through. Well, I never wore a mask throughout the whole time, but the materials, that we were breathing through, not only the materials that we're breathing through, but the state of actually going into chronic states of hypoxia. And this can be demonstrated on oneself just by wearing a pulse oximeter and wearing a mask, just even a thinner mask, and watch what happens within 90 seconds of wearing
90
a mask.
seconds.
Yeah.
That fast.
Yeah, that
'Cause
fast.
you keep breathing. If you think about it, you're rebreathing parts, not completely, but parts of your own CO2.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, parts of you're rebreathing in carbon dioxide.
carbon dioxide goes out of you and you're rebreathing it.
Yeah.
So what does
trust the
that do
mask.
to us?
Well, it causes the body, the cells essentially to start needing more oxygen. So the blood oxygen levels start to decrease. As this is happening, you're having a limited intake of oxygen, an increase of carbon dioxide, and not a way to replenish the cells with oxygen. So you're causing essentially a breakdown in the cellular structure and a cellular die-off because you're not properly replenishing those cells with oxygen, which is why the particular protocol, and just for the sake of the conversation so that I'm not repeating high altitude intermittent hypoxic recovery training, which I love to do, I like to use the term QO2 protocol. And we can get into exactly what that QO2 protocol consists of, but part of that QO2 protocol is essentially the science behind the high altitude intermittent hypoxic recovery training. Very, very powerful when doing the sequential training or therapy, however you want to look at it, to really start bringing back not only integrity to the red blood cells, but superoxygenation to the cells as well.
So I know that this was not your original path. Like you were working at Apple.
Yeah.
So how did you
7
get
years with
into this?
Apple.
Because this is a very different field.
For sure. Well, I've always been, very athletic. I've always been hyper aware of my own body. I've done a wide range of different type of extreme sports. BMX was essentially one of my main outlets as a teenager until I was 19 years old, and when I started getting into MMA, mixed martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and cage fighting. And all the while of maintaining that particular route, I was always into health and fitness as well. Bodybuilding, ever since I was 15 years old, I was into bodybuilding and physique, building my physique. I don't look like it now, as I really don't touch weights haven't.
I'd say you're in a pretty good shape.
Yeah, you are.
Someone who doesn't
Yeah.
touch weights.
Yeah.
I saw you without that shirt, and you are great.
I still do things that are physically active, and I'm still a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsuist and will always continue to be. But as far as the type of weight training that I used to engage in, I don't do that to the extent of what I used to. But I've always been hyper aware of my body and other people's bodies as well. So from a very young age, I started getting into personal training. I was a personal trainer for years throughout my 20s. I was, cage fighting, physique, bodybuilding competitions. And so I've always been hyper aware of our anatomy and our physique and manipulating the body, whether that's gaining weight, gaining muscle, losing weight, doing this in quick time as well. So I've always been super aware of these types of things. And I always tried to maintain having what I would consider an elite physique. It just made me feel good to be walking around with a type of a physique that would gain attention from people. And then I would loved to help others obtain that as well.
So you were doing that in your spare time?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So in my spare time, I was doing bodybuilding, physique, and also personal training.
Yeah.
And all the meanwhile, while I worked for Apple as well, I put in 7 years with Apple corporate. I was also engaged in personal training and also, maintaining my own physique as well. So having that knowledge and understanding really helped me cultivate not only the understanding of my exterior physical body, but also my interior as well. And I was always very health conscious with my diet, with the way that I would eat, and really knowing what type of diets and foods to be able to manipulate my body, and also supplementation as well. So I would say that I was a very strong student of, not only self-teaching, but I've always surrounded myself around, professionals in the industry as well. And I had been involved with the industry for over a decade. So having that knowledge was very helpful for later on down the road of getting into these biooptimization modalities that we're speaking of now.
So was there a particular trigger that kind of like pushed you into this field even more?
Yeah, big trigger actually. In 2007 is when I had moved to Florida from Pennsylvania, and that's when I really started getting into professional fighting, and I was always looking at ways of maintaining my body and being able to continue to train at high exertion and accelerate my own healing process. So I was always looking at ways of what would be considered biohacking. So since 2007, I would say that I was in the biohacking community. I was already doing, cold plunge, sauna, infrared sauna, photobiomodulation. I was doing these types of modalities that are just now really starting to gain a lot of popularity. I've been kind of in that scene ever since 2007. And in 2011, I had actually got jumped in Orlando, Florida. And this was a situation that had actually really injured me. I had what would be considered a floating facial fracture. So when I got jumped, I had my face broken from ear to ear all the way across. The bridge of my nose went through the roof of my mouth.
What did they hit you with and did so much damage?
Yeah, we can definitely get into that as well. But I got hit in my left eye with a fist from a punch, and then the second hit with a skateboard.
Oh, wow.
That second hit, I felt it break, and I felt my teeth break. So a few of my teeth are caps. I had to get reconstructive surgery where they had brought the roof of my mouth back up, the bridge of my nose back up, and then I had to have my teeth fixed and wired shut for a little bit, and a retainer that held my teeth, the roots of my teeth, in place for a little bit of time. And this would probably open up conversation for another podcast.
100%.
Could be.
How that event went down and what happened, because I had actually died in this incarnation and came back into my body within essentially 100th of a second. But what I had experienced when I had exited my body, near-death experience and everything like that, opened up a lot of other channels in regards to different types of downloads that I had received.
For how long you been dead? For?
It was about 30 seconds, but within 100th of a second of, taking the last hit, which I can go into the details of how that all went down, another conversation. And taking the last hit, exiting my body, the realizations that I came to, coming back into my body, and some of the awarenesses that I had, definitely started opening up other avenues and started receiving other types of information. Fast forward, in 2015 in Las Vegas, I had my face rebroken. Another type of scenario. I lived multiple different types of lifestyles. I used to be in a gang, so the first time I got jumped and the second time that I was in a violent altercation was because of the lifestyle that I was a part of. Had my face rebroken. This re-break, what that did was it sent me outside of my body once again, near-death experience once again, but this time my consciousness had actually turned away from my body, because I said, I've been here before. I know what this feels like. Let me see what I can explore. And I had essentially consciously chose to move away from the physical. And where I had went and what I had experienced and what I could just bring human words to, I was gone for what I could perceive as over 1,000 years. And the type of information that I came back with this time was information on how to heal the body, different modalities to tap into to essentially increase my energetical output for my cellular structure. So it was almost as if my consciousness had went down to an energetic and cellular level of obtaining information and awareness and understanding. So from that point in 2015, I had my face once again rebroken. I had get my teeth fixed a little bit and my nose brought back up. But what that did was I started going into deep states of mental visualization, of healing, of moving red blood cells, oxygenating these red blood cells. And from this break, it caused me to have what's called sinus collapse. So essentially at night, for the most part, my sinuses would collapse in. You'd be able to see it happen as well, where underneath my eyes, it would look a little sunken in. And what this would do is it would wouldn't allow me to be able to breathe through my nose. So I had to breathe through my mouth. Forced mouth breathing. And, me being a fighter and everything, and even working out in the gym, I've always been a nasal breather as much as I can, always focused on nasal breathing. And when I would have this issue with the sinus collapse, I started thinking about ways that I needed to repair my nasal passages. I needed to, get into deep states of breathing through my nose. I had the realization within a state of meditation. A year later, so in 2016, I had hit a very deep state of meditation that actually put me back to the place of when I had exited my body the year prior, from when I had my face broken. This time, the information I came back with, I actually had a very deep understanding of Ashtanga yoga. So this would be considered, I would say, like a mystical type of experience, or an experience that essentially the medical community or science might not have answers to. And it's also information I would love to deep dive on at another time. But what I had come back with no prior understanding to Ashtanga yoga or even Sanskrit. I had a deep awareness of Ashtanga, and for a good 4 to 5 months, I was really able to understand Sanskrit. I would see Sanskrit and understand the words and understand the flow of Ashtanga, and essentially this like philosophy of how to increase oxygenation to the cells started coming to me without studying. So at this point, this is when I started really getting into yoga, deep breathing, Ujjayi breathing, and it started helping with my nasal passage, started opening me up. From there, I started looking at ways of, I knew I needed ways to increase my nasal breathing deeper. In 2019, there was a Nobel Prize that was awarded to how the cells adapt and react to being in hypoxic conditions. I had stumbled across this Nobel Prize, this information, just being on the internet. And maybe it was because of the information that I was always kind of into, breathing, breath work, yoga, where I came across this Nobel Prize and I read it. What I read kind of opened up my mind even more. The information was how the cells adapt and react to being in hypoxic conditions, and then what happens when you reintroduce oxygen to the cells after being in these pre-hypoxic conditions. At that point, I started having the mindset that I needed to find some sort of a biohacking modality or machine that would allow you to be able to go into pre-hypoxia and then re-enter oxygen.
Just I have some questions there. Like before we jump into this Nobel thing, like for like as me, and I think like a lot of people may not even heard about this before. Like, what is an Ashtanga yoga? I think that you mentioned, and this kind of breathing that you also mentioned. Like, what exactly is that?
For
Just
sure.
give like a brief definition or understanding,
Epic.
so I can be
Great
on the
question.
same page. Because I'm like, it sounds good, but I don't know what it is.
For sure. Thanks for the question. So Ashtanga yoga,
Ashtanga.
yeah, Ashtanga, A-S-H-T-A-N-G-A, Ashtanga. Ashtanga yoga essentially is the basis of yoga, of the asanas. So all of the other yoga practices that, hatha and kundalini and all of these other types of practices, vinyasa flows and everything, come from Ashtanga. So Ashtanga is considered like the original,
the daddy of the yoga.
Yeah, the original form of yoga, and it's a sequence of asanas or postures. It's very strict. It's the same sequence that you would do essentially every day. And what this does is not only are you becoming your own chiropractor, but you're essentially literally wringing out your neurological system or re-strengthening your neurological system as you're doing the Ujjayi breath, which is a particular breath technique that your tongue is on the roof of your mouth, flat, and when you're breathing, you're only breathing nasal breathing. So you're breathing in through your nose and then you're breathing out through your nose, and it's an audible breath. So I call it like Darth Vader breath, ocean breath, furnace breath, and it's a breath that is putting you into a parasympathetic nervous state as well when you do it. So you breathe in, and when you breathe out, you can hear it. It's like waves coming in and out. So this particular breath
actually sounds like Darth Vader.
Yeah,
and now I can tell why.
And you do
Darth
that
Vader
only
voice.
by putting your tongue to the roof of your mouth.
Tongue to the roof of your mouth. And then I say when you're breathing out, you want to act as if you're saying ha or fogging up a window, but through your nose. And you'll hear it. So as you continue to do this breath and get used to doing this breath and increase the way that you're able to bring in the oxygen and release the oxygen, what you're doing is, since you're putting your tongue on the roof of your mouth, this is now changing the direction of the oxygen is changing it to the top ventricle. You've got multiple ventricles in your nasal passage. This is taking it to the top one, which is holding carbon as well. So essentially, with this breath and with Ashtanga yoga, as you're doing these asanas and you're doing the Ujjayi breath that's linked to each movement as well, after about 60 minutes of priming your body, you're super oxygenating your cells. You're moving electricity through your body. Every time you're breathing in oxygen, oxygen's carrying an electrical unit. They call this prana or chi. This is an electrical units that are in the oxygen molecule that, through the process of your body of stripping the oxygen molecule away or stripping the water away and moving the electricity through your body. You're doing this breath. You're essentially priming the body, and the top ventricle is mixing oxygen with the carbon. And essentially what you're doing is super oxygenating the body. You're cleansing the blood through this breath as well. You're moving electricity through the body. So eventually when you get into Shavasana, that's where you're laying down on your back at the end, or it's called corpse pose as well. This process is then allowing a reignition of your pineal gland, releasing essentially dimethyltryptamine, DMT, which is also healing the body as it's, coursing higher jolts of electricity through the body. So pretty scientific, but also, ones who are into yoga practice, especially with Ashtanga, and have deep knowledge of it, understand, what's happening physiologically through the body as well. So that breath work, or that particular breathing method, is something that started really helping me out and really opening up my nasal passage. And I started realizing that, to go back to what I was trying to find was some sort of a way to be able to get my body into hypoxia and then super saturate my cells with oxygen, and do this in a manner that I'm able to do it fast, quicker than, say, 60 to 90 minutes of Ashtanga yoga, which I love to do, and that's one of my practices, even still today. I started looking at, biohacking modalities to be able to allow you to get into these states quicker. And that's where I came across a technology in a company called Livo2. So, which they have essentially an oxygen generator, not an oxygen tank, but a generator. They have a bag that holds high oxygen and low oxygen. And with the flip of a switch, you have the ability to go from 95% oxygen down to 8% oxygen. So this is assimilating being about 23,000 feet above sea level. So it's like immediately when you flip this switch, you're at the altitude of Mount Everest.
Wow.
Which is awesome. So with this particular technology, the ability to oscillate between high oxygen and low oxygen. Also, I started realizing, okay, if you're adding Ujjayi breathing to this, and you're adding other modalities to this, paired with the science behind the Nobel Prize that was awarded in 2019, and then also being able to track it as well with a pulse ox, and the company having done massive research and also studies and medical studies on how to be able to tap into this, boosting EPO, erythropoietin, how powerful this is to actually heal the body. EPO is the most illegal sports performance enhancing drug in the world. It's also one of the most expensive as well, and we can boost it naturally in our bodies. It's produced by our kidneys. And by going pre-hypoxic and then super oxygenating in specific time sequences or specific times that the blood oxygen absorption levels going down to a state of pre-hypoxia, and the heart rate is going up to states of what would be considered like cardio. At these ratios, you're in a sweet spot of being able to essentially, you're excreting the excess amount of oxygen from the spleen, which your spleen is responsible for holding excess amount of oxygen, oscillating between this modality, pulling the excess amount of oxygen from the spleen, then increasing the next body's defense is to say, hey, we need oxygen and we need it now. Let's boost EPO. So this is then triggering the red blood cells in the bone marrow to release and say, we need oxygen. Now, the ability with this machine to then boost the oxygen and give those cells all of the oxygen at that point floods the body of all new rich red blood cells with oxygen, going to all of the areas that need it the most, also getting through the blood-brain barrier as well. And when you're super oxygenating the cells and getting through the blood-brain barrier, you're now getting to areas in your brain that typically wouldn't be receiving oxygen. This is huge because now you're starting to reverse the effects of concussions and TBI, traumatic brain injury, which was huge for me, especially being a fighter, having my face broken, having damage to my brain and to my face, being able to have super oxygenated red blood cells get to these areas and also have the effects of actually being able to breathe through my nasal, being able to have the fractures within my face heal. I started really having massive physical and also internal benefits from this technology, but then also being able to, with some of the understandings that I had, pairing and co-creating a protocol that actually works not only by the numbers scientifically, medically, but then also physically as well. When people experience it, actually works and is recognized as well. Sports organizations, in the United States, I was working with the NFL alumni and professional fighters, veterans, which have massive benefits, especially with the PTSD and traumatic brain injury, to start reversing these effects and to do it naturally.
Help, like, with PTSD as well.
Yeah, because PTSD is a neurological issue.
Yeah.
And when you're able to start actually being able to super oxygenate the cells and bring in more electricity through the oxygenation, this is helping repair severed neurological endings, actually start to grow new neurological pathways, and start to cause new brain activity. And this is then helping with the PTSD and also, brain injury, which is huge. So I started kind of just going all in on not only helping develop protocols that work and, actually test them, but then creating business and helping essentially anybody who is looking for the help. But I really like working with professional athletes and veterans because that's kind of like my background.
I haven't really looked it up, but can this also help with Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson?
Yeah, all of the neurological disorders that one's experience. There's the studies that show the positive effects of what's happening, but helps with all of those neurological disorders, because when you're super oxygenating the body and you're boosting EPO, the erythropoietin, when you have the cells starting to work in this manner, what this is doing is when you have an increase of not only your hemoglobin level, but your hematocrit level. So your hemoglobin is the amount of red blood cells that you have in your body. Your hematocrit level is the amount of red blood cells that you have in your body that have oxygen carrying capability. So when you're able to boost that hematocrit level, which means you have red blood cells that have oxygen carrying capability, and they need oxygen, and you give them that oxygen, and you're manipulating the body in a natural way to boost the erythropoietin to create new red blood cells as well. What this is doing is it is actually increasing your body's stem cell, your natural stem cells. So as you're having new stem cells being created in the body, which you guys are probably aware, people spend thousands to get exosomal stem cells, which it's also not even 100% guaranteed. It's something like 50% guarantee, well, not even a guarantee, 50% chance that your body might take them. this is your body's own stem cells, which means it's 100% take in your body. Your body's naturally making them. And when you have an increase of your stem cells, you're increasing telomere length, which then you're helping the increase of neurological longevity, cellular age reversal. You're now actually starting to create an environment inside of the body to truly heal without the external external medicines or external stem cells or anything like that. You know, the stem cells that they're getting are from fetal cells, babies.
Why that is not more popular?
I was just about to ask the same.
Yeah, like why do they push the stem cells and they don't push like something as that then?
Well, I think that there's many different reasons for this. And, you know, it could even go multiple different routes, conspiratorial routes and everything like that as well.
We can touch on that if you want.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys already know that the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry, they do not want you to be in, they don't want you to be able to heal. They don't want you to be able to heal yourself. If you have ways to actually be tapped into preventative health maintenance and actually ways of being able to heal yourself without physicians, without prescriptions, without...
That's bad business.
It's bad for business. Yeah, I mean, that's one. Two, you know, the exosomal stem cell craze is huge, and this is big business. I mean, the stem cells are coming from fetal cells. They're coming from umbilical cords. So essentially, you know, I don't know how deep you want to go in, but, you know, when a woman gives birth, essentially what happens immediately, they're cutting the umbilical cord, which is absolutely insane. The baby should be attached to the mother through the umbilical cord until that umbilical cord dries up. That this is the direct pipeline of nutrients that's going to the baby after it's been born. All of the stem cells, all of the nutrients being passed, all of the DNA being passed from the mother to the baby is going through that umbilical cord. What happens? They immediately cut that umbilical cord. They use that for massive profits. Stem cells are coming from that and other things as well. And then what do? Then they give the baby all types of shots immediately. The baby's natural defenses to any of the pathogens and sicknesses and diseases and things that are around are coming from the umbilical cord. So the umbilical cord typically would be attached to the baby for 5 days a week possibly. Then it dries up and it falls off.
After 5 days it dries up.
Around 5 days a week, and it's a direct pipeline that the baby is getting all of its nutrients, all of its antibodies, all of its stem cells, and then that umbilical cord dries up and falls off. But medical practices are something else these days.
So this is how it's practiced in modern day.
Yeah.
Did they do something differently back in the days, let's say 1,000 years ago?
Sure. I mean, I can't confidently say the time frame, but if you just take a look at just natural biology, and even there's some tribes that still do this, and even ones who do what would be considered natural births or natural home births, and there's people that do engage in the process of not cutting the umbilical cord immediately, having the baby, with the mother attached, which just that in itself, having the baby with the mother, for this week, say, or for even 2 weeks, this is a massive bonding time, physical bonding time of mother and baby as well. And this is not happening with modern medical. They immediately move that baby to an incubation room away from the mother, through glass, and you're losing aspects of just true connection of the baby to the mother, the nutrients. As far as I'm concerned, the whole process is something that is depriving, taking a biological and human aspect out of everything, and just depriving the baby of essential bonding time and also nutrients to then have the baby reliant on pharmaceuticals.
So just to steer it back to the question, like, why isn't it more out there?
Yeah.
And also, like, throughout the research, we also came across something from 10x Health. So, which is, they have this protocol, EWOT, right?
Yes.
Exercise
With
with oxygen
training.
therapy.
Yeah.
How is it different compared to the high altitude intermittent hypoxic recovery training?
Yeah, so 10x Health, which what they have is they're using EWOT training. They have a protocol called the Superhuman Protocol. This protocol,
With Gary Brecka.
correct. Yeah, so what Gary's around all the podcasts right now talking about all of this. Cool, is the information's getting out, but they're missing it. They're missing the mark because what they're doing is they're working with an EWOT machine, and all that EWOT machine is a high oxygen machine.
High oxygen.
High oxygen. So what it's doing is it's an oxygen generator as well. It's a bag as well. They're providing the client or the patient or the person that's on the machine with high oxygen, clean oxygen. This is good because now if you're exercising, which that's what's called EWOT, exercising with oxygen therapy or training, you're training with oxygenating the body. They're missing the mark. The reason why they're missing the mark is because they don't have the ability to go pre-hypoxic. If you don't have the ability to go pre-hypoxic, then you're missing the mark on being able to boost the EPO. So as far as I'm concerned, the main thing that we're trying to do and accomplish, especially when it comes to biohacking or biooptimization, is we're trying to actually get into boosting our body's ability to heal and perform. And the way that we're able to do that is by boosting the EPO, the erythropoietin. That there's a reason why it's the most illegal sports performance enhancing drug. Not only that, but most sports organizations have what's called anti-doping laws. And these anti-doping laws will essentially prevent you from doing any practice that would be considered blood doping. And all of these blood doping practices are trying to increase the erythropoietin, because if you're able to increase the EPO and then you're able to have new red blood cells in the body and those are being oxygenated, this is where you're getting into the actual healing process of the body, the increase of the stem cells in the body, the increase of the telomere length. You're not getting that just with EWOT. All that you're doing is you're replenishing, essentially, if you're exercising with it, you're giving a constant flow of oxygen, which is good. This is a good thing, but you're not causing this oxidative stress in the body. You're not causing the actual ability for the body to go pre-hypoxic and then to be able to truly boost it.
Because you don't create the need.
Correct. You're not creating the demand. So EWOT is something that is known in the biohacking community. It's something that is used. Also, hyperbaric chambers are used as well. Hyperbarics is still not doing what you're achieving with the LiVO2 technology, and then also not only with the technology, but with being able to have an awareness of taking the body pre-hypoxic, knowing when at what level you're taking it pre-hypoxic to then introduce the oxygen again and then oscillate between the two. So there's definitely a little bit of a science to it. The science is documented. The science is proven as well. And, a tip of the hat or hats off to, any company that's doing or that has modalities to help heal. So 10x Health, I'm not, trashing them. Good for them of, having a great EWOT system, but they're still missing the mark of actually being able to go pre-hypoxic. So they're not utilizing high altitude intermittent hypoxic recovery training. The high altitude assimilation is key.
I have two main questions in the whole thing there. Like the first is, how much does it actually boost the red blood cells? Like, obviously it's not, I reckon it's not as much as the doping, because that's why this is doping and it's illegal. So when you do it naturally through the hypoxic and then super oxygenation, like how much do you boost it approximately? Like what's the status behind of like percentage wise or something?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what has been shown, and this is why this is something that is kind of like a secret weapon within, say, some of the sports teams and everything like that as well, is the levels that are being boosted by doing the protocol. If you're doing the protocol daily, a couple times a week even, what's happening is these levels of EPO boost, they're showing that they're being boosted higher than levels of injection. It's
Okay.
also safe as well. This is something that this is off your body's own supply.
And how long it lasts?
It all depends. Typically, if you say do a session, you could have anywhere from 3 to 5 days of cellular rejuvenation happening. This is something also that it's sessions in succession. So our cells adapt and react to all different types of conditions, depending on what our lifestyle is, what our exercise output is, and everything. All of these factors do change the game. But if you are utilizing this particular type of a protocol, even a couple times a week, you're already still having a humongous advantage over anybody who's not doing that, just even from a standpoint of healing the body. But it is something that the protocol, when I'm disciplined myself, I do it every day.
Okay, so it is a practice that you need to do it like frequently.
Yeah,
Not just-
you don't need to do it every day, but I have the machine, so daily use is amazing. There's, depending on somebody's financial budget, their ability to be able to get to it, if they don't have the equipment themselves, which it's it's a little bit of an investment, but even once a week, there's professional athletes that utilize this protocol 1 to 2 times a week. Sometimes even multiple times, 3 times a week. There's ones who actually have a trainer and the equipment that they do it every single day. So the way that I look at it is, if you have the ability, if you have the equipment, you have the technology, and you have the ability to do so, that's 25 minutes out of your day. Incorporate this in as a regular part of one's training regimen. It's a no-brainer.
So I reckon from what you said, like someone can actually buy the equipment to have them in their house and they just do it themselves.
For sure.
So, yeah, I
That's
checked it
interesting,
checked it on the website, and they have 3 different kind of versions of this tool, this machine.
Yeah, so there's essentially when you say that there's 3 different versions, there's the original. That one essentially gives you the ability to go from 95% oxygen to 14% oxygen. So that's the equivalent of, say, being 12,000 feet above sea level. That's the equivalent of being on like the top of a mountain like Pikes Peak, Colorado. Then you have what would be considered the LiVO2 Extreme. That gives you the ability to go from 95% oxygen down to 8% oxygen with the flip of a switch. That's assimilating being about 23,000 feet above sea level. At that point, you're now assimilating being on top of Mount Everest. So this is more designed for professional athletes or ones who are used to this type of protocol. The extreme is the way to go. It allows you to tap into going pre-hypoxic quicker, and it also gives you more of an extreme of high altitude. Then there's also the dual. The dual gives you the ability to have 2 people on the system at the same time. So there's multiple different ways that you can have the equipment at home. With this particular equipment, I do work with the company in regards to co-creating protocols and also in the works of creating one of their certification programs. And then also, just with the work that I do with sports teams, sports players, veterans, and also what is my absolute favorite is utilizing this technology within retreat and immersion settings. So I like to do 5-day immersions, 3 to 5 day immersions that incorporate different modalities, but this particular technology is the crown of the modalities.
Yeah, you are all over their website.
Oh, right on.
So there's quite a few photos of you there. Just one question to the actual practice itself. So what kind of freaks me out a little bit is that how do I feel when I go from 95% oxygen down to 8%? What is it that I'm going to experience, and how long I'm going to be in that state?
Awesome, great question. So the change of what you would feel is actually it's a subtlety. Because what's happening is this protocol and technology is non-invasive to the body. So it's non-invasive. We say it's low impact as well. Essentially, when we flip that switch, so first we're giving you 95% oxygen, which is the most oxygen that you'd be taking in your body ever. When you're doing really, really good breath work, when you're really dropped into a solid practice, you're getting maybe 16% oxygen. We're talking 95% oxygen, pure, clean. So you're getting the best oxygen intake. When we flip that switch, what that does is it takes you down to 8% oxygen. What happens is, for one, you'll feel, within the mask, you'll feel the air change from being a cool type of an air to a little bit more of a dense, warmer type of an air. What will happen is we have you on a bicycle. I prefer an assault bicycle so that you have your arms involved as well. This way it's circulating blood through your body. It's increasing your heart rate a little bit quicker as well. So I like to get the body involved. What's happening when we flip that switch down, all that's essentially doing is your body's starting to have an inability to handle the restriction of the oxygen. It's not a humongous switch. I have you on this for about 90 seconds. Depending on your athletic ability, it may be a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. Everybody's different, but it's typically around 90 seconds that takes you pre-hypoxic. And what I'm looking for is I'm taking your blood oxygen absorption level down to about 70, like around 70 to 75% blood oxygen absorption level. This happens within about 90 seconds. It's not a huge change, but it's enough to where you start to increase your respiratory. So you start to breathe a little bit heavier because it's almost like you've increased your workload a little bit. So it's gradual. That's why it takes 90 seconds. It's not something that's an immediate hit. But once I get you to that pre-hypoxic level, then at that point, I have you do what I call a sprint, where I have you pedal faster. I'm having you then put some exertion going. We do that for 30 seconds. At the end of that 30 seconds, I have you hold your breath. I have you hold your breath down low for as long as you can. Typically, people might only be able to last a second, maybe 2 seconds.
After you're exhausted.
Yeah. But remember, this is just a 30-second sprint, so it's not crazy. But that 30 seconds, I have you hold it low. I flip the switch to high oxygen while I have you holding it low, because you know that your next breath in, you're going to be breathing in 95% oxygen. This is key because what's happening is essentially, we're restricting the amount of oxygen going into the red blood cells. We're creating a demand in the body. Your body is going, okay, we need oxygen and we need it now. Your red blood cells are essentially screaming, They're demanding for oxygen, and that breath hold is that hold to where it's like the blood oxygen absorption levels continuing to go down, and it's saying, okay, we need this oxygen. We're gonna boost this EPO as well. We're gonna flood the body of new red blood cells so we can just soak up any type of oxygen that we can get. And then when you take that breath in, bam, you're getting hit with that oxygen. All of the cells super saturate and they blast through scar tissue and go to injury sites and get through the blood-brain barrier, get to all of the parts that need it the most within the body. We allow you to take a few breaths there, get that oxygen, recover, get you to 98, 100% cellular absorption. Then we go right back down. We'll do it again. We'll start pedaling, low oxygen. What this is doing is this is also increasing your body's ability, your lungs, your ability to retain oxygen, to hold more oxygen. So this is huge for sports performance. So, you know, when you're not on the protocol and you've gone through this type of a process, you're training the body to be able to breathe in oxygen, take in more oxygen, hold more oxygen, because now you're increasing the bandwidth of the amount of oxygen that your cells can take in at one time as well. So now you're being able to become more oxygenated per breath. You're able to perform more, and you're also able to perform at higher outputs when you're pre-hypoxic, when you're low oxygen as well. This is huge. So, you know, imagine with, say, fighting, for example, MMA. You've got 30 seconds, you know, to recover, and you're taking in your breaths with that ujjayi. And your body's used to being able to take in more oxygen and have your red blood cells, the cup of your red blood cells are able to hold in more oxygen and be able to distribute more freely the oxygen through your body. This is wild, and would be a massive breakthrough. The more that people know about this technology, know about these types of protocols, the more that it's just going to continue to really flood the sports performance scene, the biohacking scene, and then also just the longevity scene as well for, you know, not only veterans, but for elderly people as well, for just anybody who's looking for protocols of recovery from, you know, being in states of chronic hypoxia from, you know, the respiratory event that we had a couple of years ago as well.
I have two questions here. Like the one we're gonna go dive after the first one, actually, is like the why. Why do we need this in our body? But before we go into this, I just want to understand how this works fully, because what you described even earlier is like the high altitude training, which is known for like centuries. Like I've even been used in ancient Greece for athletes and Olympic athletes to go train in high mountain in Olympus for like a few weeks and then go down to perform better. My question here is like, how do we create the acclimatization sooner through the machine? Because typically the body to acclimatize to the high altitude training, it used to require like minimum a week. Like usually teams, especially martial art teams or athletes, we're going for 2 weeks in high altitude training to create this environment. So how do we create this from the machine in sessions?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And
yeah, because that's like my key. I want to understand how this happens, especially if after leaving a session you still live on a sea level.
Yes. So what's happening is, say, you know, training in high altitude, becoming acclimated to the high altitude. That acclimation is happening through a natural process through our natural respiratory and naturally, say, exercising within these climates. When we're utilizing the technology is actually forcing the body to
pushing it
acclimate.
faster to happen.
Correct. Yeah. So you're creating an environment inside of the body to have to acclimate and have to acclimate quickly. So essentially, the true term of biohacking, this is what we're actually doing. We're actually hacking the body to accelerate the process, to be able to be in an acclimation quicker, to be able to have the internal processes of the body really start kicking up into high gear. Because essentially when you're taking the body pre-hypoxic in the way that we're doing it, if your body was not to acclimate to these types of conditions in the way that we're doing it, your cells would die. You would die. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating that demand in the body, and then we're supplying the demand, and we're doing it in oscillation and in intermittent rounds. And the way that we're doing that is we're just super accelerating the process. So essentially that 30 minutes with recovery as well, 30-minute session, essentially you're receiving the effects, the positive effects of like 4 back-to-back Ashtanga yoga sessions with the amount of super saturation and oxygenation, or say an hour and 20 minutes of extreme breath work. You're not even still getting scratching the surface of what you're getting in 30 minutes of going pre-hypoxic and then, super oxygenating. So for ones who are looking to go high altitude and acclimate to the high altitude, this is also something as well for ones who are looking at maybe doing a mountain, a summit hike or anything like that, to get just train even for the acclimation of those high altitudes. This protocol gets you primed and ready quick to be able to withstand those altitude changes.
But why? Like, how does it push the body to acclimatize quicker?
So that flip of the switch. So when
Is
we
the trigger.
Yeah, so when we flip that switch down to the low oxygen, that's 8% oxygen. What this is doing is it's causing the oxygen absorption level in the cells to decrease. As they're decreasing, essentially, if you were to decrease down to around 65 on a pulse ox, even around 60 to 65, a person would essentially pass out from oxygen deprivation.
And I guess that's why you give them more oxygen at the beginning. Because otherwise, in normal circumstances, this instant drop would make them pass.
Well, what's going to happen is a person... Well, I'm not going to allow somebody to pass out, for one. But two, what's going to happen is that's why we have them on a bike, because we're forcing also the body to go down into this level of prehypoxia, and then we're also increasing the heart rate as well, so that we're moving blood through the body. If we were to get you down to 60, you'd pass out. But what would happen is the body's going to have a bunch of different mechanisms before you pass out. One of those is going to be the increase of your breathing rate. You're going to start breathing a lot more quickly as well to try to bring in oxygen. There's still time before actually going into the state of passing out, going to these levels. But, theoretically, somebody could get into that area of passing out, but somebody would have to really be like, sick to take themselves to that level. They'd really just either take the mask out. Yeah,
I would do it.
Yeah,
I would try.
That's how I
Why
train.
not?
I take myself, and that's how I train others as well. Because when we do the breath holds, we take ourselves to the level of just about to pass out. And then that when you take that next breath in, you have the oxygen waiting for you, that it's going to just boost you right back up. So remember, I had made mention some people can hold that breath hold for, say, a second or 2 seconds. As you become acclimated to this protocol, we go into breath holds of 15 seconds, 20 seconds.
What's the top you've ever seen?
The top I've ever seen was...
You're like challenge accepted.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The top that I've ever seen was actually from me, because I know that I'm always trying to increase my time. And the only reason why I went even to this level was because my 2 other patients, we did a 5-day immersion where we were doing the protocol 2 times a day. And my 2 clients, they were tapping into 12 seconds, 13 seconds, 14 seconds.
And you got competitive.
And so I got, well, we were all kind
That
of
would be
like
so
a little
mean.
competitive with each other because we were pushing each other, So at that point I said, okay, if and the one person, he's in his 50s, And I was like, dang, if he's dropping into 13 seconds on this hold, and he was going for it, I was like, I gotta do more, So I got into.
I don't blame him.
Yeah,
I would feel the same.
We should do it, man.
Yeah, I did 16 seconds, and I was shaking. I almost felt like I was gonna pass out, but I'm not scared of that because I already know that I have the oxygen waiting for me. What's going to happen is it doesn't matter how long you can hold for. You're going to take a breath. That's your body's natural defense.
It's already there, available for you.
It's going to take a breath. When you get to that point that you absolutely can't, even if you got to the point that you passed out, if you took yourself actually to the point that you went, you're going to take a breath in. That breath in that you take is going to be full oxygen. We have the switch flipped to the 95% oxygen. So that next breath that you take in, immediately all of the cells suck it all up in. It will bring you right back immediately.
Is there any benefit for holding it longer?
Yeah. The longer that you can hold it, the better.
Why?
Because what happens is once you get to that point of dropping low, and this is not just with this protocol. This is within breath work. This is within, if you're looking at really getting into, deeper states of like transcendental meditation and everything like that as well. When you can go low, when you drop your breath all the way, empty lungs, you're down at the bottom. The longer that you can hold down at the bottom, the more that your cells are starting to lose their oxygen, the closer you're getting to essentially a death. When this happens, the body's chemical processes start to change. You start to have an increase of dimethyltryptamine from your pineal gland. You start to have an increase of adrenaline. You start to have your body's processes start to do things to where it now needs to switch into a different state to keep you alive. And this is down not only from a physical level, but a psychological level. Different things start happening. So when you go into deep states of, say, meditation, and you breathe out and you hold, the longer that you can hold down, this is where you start to get visualizations. You can start to get, even take yourself, if you did a long round of breath work or a breath journey, say even an hour of breathing, and then you go low and hold it, and you hold at those deep states. This is when you start to really, the body starts to go through a journey or an experience. And the more that you're able to hang out low as well after the protocol, as we're doing the oscillation, when you're hanging low, you've excreted the excess amount of oxygen from the spleen. Now, at this point, your body is boosting the EPO. The longer that you're hanging out low, the more of an EPO boost that you're getting because your body is sensing that you don't have oxygen in your body. Your body is sensing that the cells are going, okay, we need oxygen. When are we getting this oxygen? We need red blood cells. We need to pick up oxygen from anywhere that we can get. The more that you can hang out low, the more that your body is now triggering the EPO to release red blood cells from the bone marrow. This is the hormone that's maturing the red blood cells in the bone marrow. So it's saying, okay, the blood in the bone marrow needs to be mature. It needs to be ready to pick up oxygen and just release. So now, essentially, you're doing legal blood doping. You're giving yourself a natural blood transfusion. You've got new red blood cells in your body. The more that you're hanging out low, the more that you're creating that demand for the oxygen, so that then when you do take that breath with the 95% oxygen, you've increased your hematocrit level. You've increased the amount of red blood cells that you have. You've increased the demand for the oxygen, which makes it even that much more powerful when you do take that breath to flood the body full of that oxygen.
Well,
Awesome.
This is super fascinating. I don't know about you, but I definitely want to give it a try.
Oh,
We
yeah,
can
I'm
also challenge
fascinated.
each other who can
Actu-
hold it longer.
Yeah, I was about to say, actually, I would just like to see if I can hold my breath longer.
Yeah,
than
same.
you. I don't mind for anything else. It's that. I just want to test that, if I can hold it long enough to pass out.
Yeah. You'll know when you get to those levels. Like, I'll take myself to those levels. I'll take people to those levels, and it happens quick as well, because when you're already pre-hypoxic, got you about say 70 on the pulse ox, you'll feel it if you're holding it, and if you're pushing yourself to hold it, you're low, you're pushing through your body, going, okay, I need to take a breath. You've still got more in you, but when you take that breath, then you're gonna have the oxygen waiting for you. But it's fun tapping
like
into
ears buzzing.
Yeah, it's fun tapping into
Yeah, you
just
feel high a little
really
bit.
being low.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Vision gets
Yeah.
blurry, dark, like
Tunnel
All the
vision.
stuff you
Tunnel
like.
vision
Yeah.
happens. But remember, this is all happening very quickly. You know,
Yeah, it's
once
happened
you're
to me in
that
the gym.
state, You know, yeah, 15,
Every day.
15 seconds or so, you drop in, and then you take that breath, and then you're recovering. You're feeling the exhilaration as well. You're feeling the oxygen just. You can feel it. You can feel your cells just like, thank you for this oxygen. It's pure and it's going through the body, and you went through a journey too. You know.
This is awesome. I cannot wait this to be out there. I already have a list of people I would like to share this with. So, yeah, thank you for coming on. Is there
Yeah,
anything
thank you.
else you would like to share? Something that you would like to put out there as a final message?
Sure. I mean, I really appreciate you guys having me on the podcast. It's awesome. And anytime that you guys want me back on, feel free and let me know. I'll
would
be
be
here.
nice to chat about the story.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Yeah, that
I want to know the
honestly,
details on that.
That will be another episode, that story in the yoga practice.
Yeah, that
but
would
I
be
still
an
cannot
episode
pronounce well, I think.
all in itself,
Yeah, I
for
have it
sure.
here.
Ashtanga.
Ashtanga.
Ah man, it will take me so long to pronounce
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. If anybody is interested in this type of a protocol, feel free. You can speak to Adam. You can get in contact with
We'll
me.
get your details as well. I've
Yeah.
down in the description. Your Instagram we're
For
using
sure.
mainly. What's like the main contact?
My main is just consultations through WhatsApp. I do have a social media handle on Instagram. I'm not that active on there,
but you do
I
receive messages.
I do receive
Okay.
messages on there. It is something that I do offer sessions here in Bali. If anybody's listening around the world, the United States, we have multiple trainers in the United States at some particular chiropractor offices and some longevity centers. But here in Bali, there is only, I think, 3 locations that offer this particular protocol. So I offer sessions, whether it's, go to your location or you come to my villa. We can set it up and make it happen. Sessions are 30 minutes long, and we can discuss any type of packages or anything like that as well. I do want to say before ending as well, I truly believe that this is the #1 biooptimization modality that you can do. I'm in process right now of establishing the full modality here in Bali. That is a stacked modality, so it's multiple things. It's not only the high altitude intermittent hypoxic recovery training, it's photobiomodulation, PEMF, cold plunge, and sauna as well, all within a session.
Awesome. Well, I think this is the perfect way to wrap it up. Thanks again. It was
Thank
a
you,
pleasure.
guys.
And
Yeah.
we will
Thank you for
definitely
being here,
chat
man.
more.
For sure. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.